Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Remember the Hyphen.
Yep.
I'm Average Joe Squad.
And I'm Zongetsu 134. Take
Here
two
with
on
take
this.
two, because we originally were going to use a funky 1990s VHS camcorder filter for this, and the filter decided that it only wanted to do short clips, so
Yeah.
we're just going to restart this one.
Well, yeah.
Great way to start season 2.
Yeah. Welcome to season 2. Yeah, I thought we had, ironed out a lot of the kinks of this show. But, this happens when you try something new. So, all right. Basically, we're talking about the Hobgoblin, particularly how he rose to greatness, and then
Fell faster than New Coke.
he really did. So, basically, Roger Stern, who was the then head writer of Amazing Spider-Man at the time, was given a task of creating a new villain for the comic to kind of breathe some life into it. And so, they kind of threw around some ideas for this character, originally settling on the idea that it should be a new Green Goblin. The problem was, at the time, there had already been 2 new Green Goblins introduced. Harry taking up the mantle of his father, and his psychiatrist, who probably no one remembers because he was that lame.
And I'm your father. Avenge me.
No.
Is it really an episode of Remember the Hyphen if we don't get in a Raimi reference at least once?
That's true. Especially because the psychiatrist was the only time the Goblin ever used his most deadly weapon, the Sonic Toad. Literally, it's a rubber frog with a sonic blaster in it.
Making 60s Joker look viable again.
It's true. So, basically, Stern decided that it had to be, someone who wasn't attached to Norman, and it had to be an entirely new character. Which is why they settled on the Hobgoblin. Now, to be fair, the Hobgoblin, when it started, was great. You didn't know who he was, so you got a mystery angle on it, like the original Green Goblin story. But he was also... What made him so much of a problem for Spider-Man was that he got all his equipment and stuff. He stole it from Osborn's old weapon caches, because Norman was one of those nutcases that hid stuff all over New York. So Spider-Man was jonesing for this dude because he wasn't sure if he found evidence that Osborn left behind, notes that he knew who he was. In the early issues between Spidey and the Hobgoblin's like, why are you jonesing so hard to kick my ass? I get it. I'm dressed like one of your old foes, but just leave me alone.
Hobgoblin!
It actually was kind of like that because he legitimately, pretty much every fight, pretty much tried to beat his ass.
I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
The only reason, Hobgoblin got away at all was because he was... Especially because early on, he didn't have the formula. In fact, this is actually where they retcon in that the formula actually gave Norman superpowers. Because the Hobgoblin's there's no way, even with all these gadgets, he could handle going toe-to-toe with Spider-Man. He had to, because originally it was just he was a crazy nutcase in a costume.
And then he took it back to formula.
And especially because a lot of people like to try and imply that the formula was what made him crazy. And this here, it implies that it drove him over the edge, but Norman was probably always a little crazy. Which would... Oddly enough, I think get talked about in later stuff Roger Stern wrote, I think, because I think he also wrote the Goblin Journal, where it was that one where Peter gets put in a machine that makes him see the history of Norman. Yeah,
I think I remember that.
Which is also a solid book if you really want to know the history of Norman Osborn. I actually highly recommend it. So basically Stern was given the task to create the Hobgoblin, and for a while, it worked. He did have a few suspects, notably a fashion designer that Peter ran into when he was fighting one of the few female villains he had that never went anywhere.
And one that Mary Jane was doing work for at the time.
And yeah, she was doing fashion stuff for him. But yeah, because named Roderick Kingsley, and Kingsley was kind of implied to be working with the mob, or he was at least paying royalties to them to keep them from trashing his place.
Well, and in the issue of I think it was it Web of Spider-Man?
It was probably Web.
Or it was either that or Spectacular. And it was implied that Kingsley wasn't exactly on the up and up. He would steal ideas, claim them as his own. That was kind of the reason why Belladonna went after him, was because of this. So it already been established early on in the can that he wasn't exactly the most on point person, basically.
It also kind of implied that there's something weird about him, because when when Spider-Man first meets the guy like takes none of Spider-Man's shit, basically. You know, he's like, "Get out! I have nothing to say to you, you punk in a terrible looking costume." But then there were other times where he would like freak out and become a coward, which was interesting, and in my opinion was setting up stuff that Stern did. Which, okay, I was gonna try and like do it where like we would like talk about like, but basically Roderick Kingsley was supposed to be revealed to be the Hobgoblin, and he could do this because like occasionally Hobgoblin and Kingsley were in the same room. It was later revealed that Roderick Kingsley had a twin brother, I think named Dan.
I think so.
Daniel Kingsley, who would pretend to be him while he was dressed up as the Goblin.
And there's a great trade paperback out there for anybody that wants to read this. It's called The Origin of the Hobgoblin.
Yeah,
it's pretty cheap to pick up anymore.
Sadly, though, it's only the first couple issues, so like it ends where I think the battle van goes into the river after Peter fights him in the battle van. Because yes, he had a battle van. Everybody had a battle van in the 80s.
Oh, my van back.
And he supposedly dies in the river.
Goblins can't swim.
Which, of course, was just set up for, you know, that there was going to be more to the mystery. That eventually the Hobgoblin would come back and we'd get the revelation who he was. The problem was, around that time, Stern was kicked off of Amazing Spider-Man.
I forget. Refresh me. Why was he kicked off Amazing? Did he just have personality conflicts with people?
I think it was more Jim Shooter had to make a lot of cuts because basically Marvel was on their way to bankruptcy even in the 80s. They were kept afloat because the speculator boom happened, but basically Marvel was facing a lot of financial troubles, particularly because I think Shooter was kind of not spreading the wealth out well. He actually chose himself to write Secret Wars because he was like, no one else should get this, because basically he would get all the toy royalties from it or something like that. I'm not completely well versed in it, but basically a lot of problems you could argue before Marvel got that CEO that bankrupted them.
No, man, it's all Tom DeFalco's fault.
Well, yeah, they also blame Tom DeFalco, but that's another can of worms.
Unjustly, in my opinion.
No, like with Stern here, it's kind of the same. But basically, he kicked Stern off the title, and Stern didn't tell anyone who the Hobgoblin was. So it got passed around to a bunch of different writers, most notably Tom DeFalco. And eventually, they stretched this out to like I think 2 years. You know. Kind of like another story that Spider-Man had that they stretched it out too thin. You know what I'm talking about.
I want my lawyer.
Look, I'm not saying that the Clone Saga was bad. I'm just saying that that's the biggest problem with the Clone Saga is it's got stretched too much. Basically, they had all these different red herrings and potential suspects. One of which was a Daily Bugle photographer that was a rival for Peter at the time. I think Lance Bannon was his name.
Flash Thompson.
Oh, we'll get to Lance. We'll get to Flash. We will get to him. And of course Ned Leeds, who, if you know your history with the Green Goblin, was also a potential candidate and almost was the Green Goblin originally until Steve Ditko I think Stan Lee was like, no, that we've already done a bunch of villains from the Daily Bugle. Let's make it somebody else so that we don't look like we're repeating ourselves. Which, of course, happens anyways, because I can't tell you how many bad guys and heroes work at the Daily Bugle or know somebody that's a hero, like Ben Urich, who's good friends with Daredevil. Although, to be fair, I like Ben Urich. Ben's a good character. And so basically, Tom, who says that Stern told him who it was, but he didn't like it. I argue that Tom never told him, or that Roger never told him because that was his baby.
Has Roger Stern ever commented on it?
Roger usually, like I said, it kind of like both of them have commented on it.
It's kind of been convoluted as to which is the actual.
Sometimes Roger has said he told Tom, and Tom didn't like the whole twin brother thing. Sometimes Tom says, no, he didn't tell me, he didn't tell anyone. So I just had to roll with it.
Basically, it's nobody can keep their story straight.
Basically. So eventually, Tom settled on Ned Leeds, who we didn't find out was the Hobgoblin until after he died in Spider-Man vs. Wolverine. Yeah, literally he gets his throat slit in Spider-Man vs. Wolverine, and then the next issue of Amazing, the Kingpin literally gives him a file, gives Spider-Man a file that explains that Ned was the Hobgoblin. Which was later retconned when
Kingpin's totally a viable,
trustworthy
source.
It actually wasn't him it was actually this villain called the Foreigner who gave it to him, and he just
and he'd been waiting for a girl like you.
Yeah. He was hot-blooded.
It was a Blue Monday.
Do you like these references, kids? We're hip and young.
It's cold as ice.
So, basically for years, everyone accepted that Ned Leeds was the Hobgoblin. The mantle of it was passed on to Jason Macendale, former Jack-o'-lantern turned lame-ass copy of a much better reincarnation. Until Roger Stern had enough of it in '97, was like, nah, I'm done with this Joker pretending to be my Hobgobby. Brought the actual Hobgoblin back, killed Macendale, and created one of the best stories ever, Hobgoblin Lives.
That really reminds me of, I know you're not a big Star Wars guy, but I think I've told you about this comic. There's a comic called Twin Engines of Destruction. And it basically was about this, while Boba Fett was in the Sarlacc pit, there was this guy out there masquerading around as him. And so Boba found out about it, tracked him, and then killed him pretty brutally.
I think an episode of Back Issues actually did this.
Yeah, I think they did. That's really what this kind of reminds me of.
Yeah, because Macendale just never worked. He got enhanced human abilities via the first child of Kraven, the Grim Hunter, the dude with the metal arm and the stupid spear. Then during the X-Men storyline Inferno, which do you know the storyline Inferno?
I'm not really a huge X-Men guy. You gotta remember, I'm trying to read X-Men in order, which is a daunting task.
Basically, in this tradition of the X-Men are a representation of minorities, they fight demons. And this demon makes Hobgoblin into a demonic Hobgoblin, which eventually gets split from his body and becomes the Demogoblin.
I actually had the toy of this Hobgoblin as a kid.
Yeah,
and I could never figure out why it looked so fucked up.
That's because he was possessed by a demon. Then we got the Demogoblin. That character that Ghost Rider dealt with more than Spider-Man. Was in the greatest story ever, Maximum Carnage. Wasn't that a great story, huh?
Well, you see, I was actually Ghost Rider.
Not now, Nicolas Cage. And then, if you know the Clone Saga, he got turned into a cyborg. And he still sucked. But, yeah, so, you can already tell, one of the worst parts of this was the fact that nobody knew what to do with the Goblin. They were just trying to make it work, and it didn't work out.
Trying to wrap up loose ends.
Yeah. So, and not helped by the fact that instead of, they were gonna, I think, reveal it, a year after they had done it. But then this storyline started that was gonna be in a bunch of different, street-level characters called Gang War. Where basically, Kingpin has left the country and succeeded his throne as the head of all the organized crime in New York.
How do you consider?
So, the Hobgoblin, Ned Leeds, and this villain called the Rose, who is, of course, the son of the Kingpin, Richard Fisk, are working together to try and bring down the Kingpin's criminal empire. The idea with Kingsley is that he doesn't care about the organized crime stuff. He just wants all of Kingpin's legitimate businesses so that he can make profit. Because the thing about Kingsley's Hobgoblin is, he's all about collecting as much as he can. When he first was going after all the Green Goblin stashes, he was like, I want all of it. Which was great because, when he gets the journal that he thinks has the Green Goblin formula in it, it literally is the issue that's talking about where the Goblin is going to go off to fight Peter in the night Gwen Stacy dies. where he was like, "This is going to be my last stand up against Spider-Man. I'm going to take his girlfriend to the bridge," and he never knew who Peter was, which was great because it meant that Peter never knew that Hobgoblin didn't know, but also at the same time, like, it showed that the Goblin was truly alone. So like, it was like one of his first joyrides as the Goblin after he got the super strength. He went to this country club where Harry and a bunch of his business people knew each other, including J. Jonah Jameson, because that was how we were first introduced to Norman, was that he was at Jonah's country club.
Yeah.
Well, he goes there and tries to get money out of everybody, but he forgets that the Kingpin was a member of this country club, because Kingsley was also a member, which is actually one of the first hints that who he was, because in his thought bubbles, he's like, the Kingpin! I forgot that he was a member! And, of course, Roderick is there, but it's really his brother Dan. And even then, he's actually not there because it was actually a robot that he built. Because the 80s!
Comics.
Because comics. And so, like, a lot of his plans were kind of, they were small potatoes, but it worked out because, like, he clearly was more just about causing crime to make himself more wealthy or, like, extend his reach. And so, like, because, like, one of the best things was, like, occasionally Dan as Roddy would be like...
I just thought of it when Roderick comes back. He goes after the imposter. You just cost me $6,000.
That's basically because
one Cadillac.
He goes to the prison where he is, and he's like, I can't believe I let you run this long in my mantle. And then he just takes his finger, because he has the laser fingers that...
You just cost me $6,000. $6,000 and one goblin glider.
And one battle van.
One battle van. That's right.
You cost me a battle van.
What are you going to do about it? Asshole. You fucking shit.
I was about to say, don't finish that quote, because there's some inappropriate language in that for this channel.
As if we're not swearing up and down.
But swearing, I don't mind. Yeah,
I know what you mean.
So basically, he finds out because basically Ned Leeds has been following the Hobgoblin because he's been trying to expose who he is. Well, and this is all retcon, so I'm going to explain it as best as I can. But basically, Hobgoblin brainwashes Ned Leeds and finds out that he's working with Richard Fisk. Later, also Richard Fisk's college roommate, who apparently knew Mary Jane in college, Alfredo. And literally his name is Alfredo. We're all working together to topple the Kingpin. Basically, Ned wanted it on because he wanted to expose, like, you know, the story. Well, so basically, Roderick, being the kind of spineless coward that he is, even though he is pretty awesome when he fights, what he does is basically he'll dress Ned up whenever he doesn't want to actually show up for the meetings and have him be the Hobgoblin, because there's like a voice altering thing. So basically, he was trying to kind of have a bunch of candles burning at both ends, you know, because he would be the muscle for this group, but at the same time, he didn't want to completely dirty his hands.
Yeah.
And while this is all going on, he's kind of coming unglued at the fact that no matter what he does to fight Spider-Man, he can't beat him.
He's basically the same thing that happened to Norman is happening to him.
He's becoming obsessed. And it's really great because Dan, who once again is pretending to be Roderick, because they actually do a lot of references to the original Hobgoblin story. Like, they'll have a scene where, like, you know, like where he was like tying his tie in the original issue and like you didn't see his face. They would do stuff like that. Where like they were kind of like calling back to Norman's stint as the Hobgoblin or the Green Goblin. And Dan will be like, you're getting too obsessed. You're almost like, I am not obsessed. I am not the Green Goblin. I am the Hobgoblin, and I am not obsessed. Osborn was crazy. I'm not crazy.
It's like,
which I'm like,
really?
Chief,
can you back it up? You're like a 10. I need you to 2.
But then we get to the problem I have is like they don't know who the Goblin is, and they want to create more suspects. So they already had Lance, and a lot of people actually suspected Jonah as being the Hobgoblin. Well, because he was actually originally a contender for the Green Goblin back in the day. And, of course, Ned got thrown around. But basically...
It was actually all Flash Thompson.
That's what I'm getting to. And the problem is they did so in a way that also made Spider-Man look like an idiot. So, Peter gets into a fight with the Hobgoblin, and he he does a lot easier than he usually does with Gabi. And so he beats the crap out of him and knocks him off the glider. It's revealed that it's Flash. And everyone actually believes that it's Flash.
Yeah, which makes no sense because the guy idolizes Spider-Man, so why would he be the Hobgoblin?
What's especially dumb for Peter, because I'm like, Peter, when the Hobgoblin first showed up, he killed Lefty Donovan and like this guy named, I think, Blackie Markston or something like that. Like by giving him the Goblin formula, brainwashing him with the Winkler machine, which is the brainwashing device, and throwing him into power cables after he was about to lose and reveal who people were, basically electrocuting him. Like, do you honestly believe that Flash is capable of killing people? And yes, I know this was just after he came back from Vietnam.
Because that doesn't mean shit.
Yeah. Which, basically, what happens is it wasn't Roderick who did that. It was actually Ned. Basically, Ned got mad because, like, Flash was cheating on his girlfriend, Shashawn, who was a woman he brought back from Vietnam. Because he slept with Betty.
So are the webs to the hourglass. So are the days of our lives.
Like, Betty Brant's kind of awful. Like, when her marriage is on the rocks, she goes to Peter and, like, they talk all night. Basically, Peter slept with a married woman.
Shows her the old web shooter.
That's kind of what was implied. But they couldn't write that.
He's obviously not.
And so basically, Flash and Betty slept, which also kind of started the whole Flash and Betty off and on thing. Which I actually will admit, I actually don't mind them together because it kind of works. Because, like, she's awful, he's awful. Actually, to be fair, I think Flash got a lot better until he died.
Yeah, he died. He died when he was Agent Venom, wasn't he?
Yeah, which was kind of a shame because I actually really liked him as Agent Venom. I know a lot of people have problems with him, but, like, and I did as well, but, like, I kind of grew to like, especially with doing, like, making Flash actually be a hero, like his hero.
Yeah.
And so, like, basically, Ned was coming really unhinged. Almost like he was, like, in fact,
losing his fucking mind.
Peter tries to talk to him, like, because he's like, you're scaring me and Betty. And he grabs Peter, and Peter's spider sense goes off. He's like, that's really weird. Which I'm like, to be fair, Peter's spider sense goes off when, like, a pillow gets thrown at his head. So I don't know why that was such a big deal.
Well, but he can't dodge a banana.
Bananas aren't scary. But, and that was his Peter tingle that was off, not his spider sense. And so, like, there's all these really stupid plot points. Like, there's a plot point where, like, the Goblin's like, I can't be exposed now because my family will be you know, implying that Roderick doesn't want his brother Daniel to get in trouble, which is hilarious because then Hobgoblin returns. Daniel's outlived his usefulness, so he just shoots him. He doesn't die though, but basically, there's all these convoluted plots, and so basically, Roderick's like, this has gone on long enough. I'm losing money. I'm gonna go to Cuba or some European country and chill out for a while. But the Hobgoblin has to die. So originally he was gonna have him be killed by this corrupt cop named, I think, Captain Keering or something like that, who we later retcon was a fake identity for the Foreigner and his like, because the idea with the Foreigner was he was like Taskmaster
and his urgent business.
Thank you. He was like Taskmaster, where like he's kind of like, he trains people to be like assassins. So the Foreigner was pretending to be Keating, and he was actually the one who got Flash like pushed through the police procedure to get him framed for the crimes as committed by the Hobgoblin. Which later Peter got undone because basically he fights the Hobgoblin in an area where there's people to show that clearly Flash isn't the Hobgoblin, because how could he be in prison and also fighting Spider-Man? But basically he I think Kingsley either figured out that Keering was the Foreigner or knew the Foreigner, but basically spread along some knowledge in the underworld that Ned Leeds was the Hobgoblin. So when Ned gets sent on this trip with Peter to fight this guy or find out stuff about this guy called, I think, I forget his name. Charlemagne. This villain named Charlemagne. Because, like, the Berlin Wall at the time had come down, so they were going over to East Berlin or something like that. I forget exactly. Spider-Man vs. Wolverine's not very good for me, in my opinion. AKA the issue where Peter actually kills somebody. not on purpose, but basically Peter goes out and in his Spider-Man in a German Spider-Man costume he buys because he left his costume at home. So he goes to a German costume shop.
He becomes Night Monkey?
Not. No, he wears a Spider-Man costume, but it has the word "the Spider" written on it in German on the back.
Oh, Jesus.
So it has Die Spider, or however you pronounce spider in German.
Spider.
The spider. Yeah, it has that written across the back.
Jesus.
So he spends the whole story in this Halloween costume. It looks pretty good for a Spider-Man Halloween costume, though. But so basically, he gets back to the hotel, and Ned is dead. His throat has been slit, which takes us into the Amazing Spider-Man story that tells what happened. Basically, he gets attacked by a bunch of because originally in the story you think Charlemagne doesn't want him there, so he kills Ned. Well, it turns out some foreigner sent some men in there, and he had just come out. He just put on like his goblin costume, and he basically gets his arm broken, and then calls for Spider-Man to help him, and then gets his throat slit. Which I'm like, thanks. I'm glad this really cool villain gets killed in such a chump ass way.
Chumps.
Like it.
See you later, chump.
Like people always complain about Doc Ock getting his neck broken by Kane, but at least he went out swinging.
Yeah.
Like
and he comes back anyway.
Yeah, Ned doesn't even get that. Ned's been dead for years.
People act like these deaths are permanent. There's only 2 permanent deaths in Spider-Man, and it's freaking Uncle Ben and Gwen. That's it.
And even then, they kind of play fast and loose with that. But it's like you get my point, right? Like this is super convoluted, and I'm skipping a lot of it. I'm skipping the fact that they try to retcon that Fisk wasn't the Rose; it was Alfredo. And then later on, they were like, no, sometimes Alfredo was pretending to be fit.
Actually, Alfredo was the holiday killer the whole time.
It might as well have been. It was bullshit, this storyline. It even ends stupidly where Kingpin comes back because they're like, well, he keeps the mobs all from fighting each other and causing more. I'm like, that's bullshit.
Bullshit.
So,
you know what's bullshit?
So, like, that was the biggest problem, was that they saw, like, what in your opinion, like, do you think, what do you think about this story I've told you so far about
this, how... Given what Clone Saga was, this is pretty par for the course. Yeah, like, because, like, you have it where, like, they keep running around, like, there's this great issue where they kind of flat out say that it's Roderick, because he comes out, like, because, like, Peter, like, was going after Hobgoblin, and then he disappears around where Roderick's studio is, and Mary Jane's working there at the time. She's coming out of the building, and and it's clearly supposed to be the Hobgoblin. He has a conversation with her, and Mary Jane seems happy to see him, as if implying that it's Roderick, and she's just having a conversation with the dude. Also kind of implied, because Roderick has this thing for beautiful women, like, he kind of is hitting on Mary Jane. Mary Jane's like, yeah, no, you're a gross creep, but, you know, you're paying my bills, so I'll flirt with you a little bit. And, like, you get really great stuff like that. Like, because Roger Stern is a great writer, and I think he ducks out around halfway point of the gang war storyline. It's just a mess. And then you have Macendale coming along and just making him even lamer. Like I think the first issue of him as the Hobgoblin, Peter kicks his ass drunk. No, because he was moving out of his apartment because he couldn't afford to keep it anymore or something. I think either that or I think him and Mary Jane just got married. I can't remember. It wasn't the issue where the guy that was wanting MJ kicked him out of the apartment. No. It wasn't that. No, not that. We'll have to do a video on that storyline at some point because it's so stupid. It wasn't that. Basically, Peter was leaving his apartment, the one that he was in since like college, the one with the skylight that he would climb in and out of. The famous one. Yeah, the famous one. Basically, they're having a party and someone spiked the punch, and he had like a cup or two, and so he's web swinging. He's like, oh, I think there was something in that punch. And so he's a little loopy and drunk. Well, Macendale try and prove that he's cool because he wants to work for the Kingpin, which already he's lame because like at least Hobgoblin wanted to rule the mob. Yeah. No, he just now Macendale's like, well, I'm already lame, but like I could try to be lame for the Kingpin. And he fights Peter, and again, Peter is drunk off his ass and still beats him. I'm like, this is how you try to introduce me to this Hobgoblin? Granted, it's cool because Peter was able to kick his ass while drunk, but like, yeah, like really. But like, I mean, it's cool for Spider-Man, but not cool for Macendale. And like, they try to give him pathos. Like, we're wrapping up. I don't want to spend too much time on Macendale. He's not worth it. Like, because like he's not worth it, Ronald.
which is a shame because like he was apparently like a CIA guy, so like he should be like cool. Like they try to do stuff where like he had like a son and like, but like he was a shit dad. It just didn't work. And then they kept trying to give him gimmicks like the demon shit or the cyborg
They
shit.
kept trying to make it work, and it's like, guys, it's not gonna work.
You know,
drop
like,
it.
And to be fair, that was kind of a problem with Spider-Man going into the Clone Saga, where they kept trying to replace like villains that were dead or not working. They did that like a bunch of times with
how they kept trying to give him a
Vulture.
female villain, and it was like, guys,
yeah,
come
it just
on.
never stuck. To be fair though, I wish they would give him some more female villains. It's just kind of a shame he doesn't really have any.
Yeah.
Like the closest you have is Black Cat, and she's a good guy now.
Yeah. I think anybody else.
The White Rabbit.
You don't think
Oh yeah, Joystick or whatever her name is.
Joystick. It's not Joystick. It's what is it?
The
Screwball.
Screwball.
So
I don't know why I call her
character we both hate so much that it's like it's not even worth getting the name correct.
It's such a shame because she actually isn't a bad concept. It's just she's so annoying.
Especially in the PS4 game. Y'all that have played the PS4 game, you know exactly what the hell I'm talking about.
Which again, a shame because I do like that idea, like the commentary of you should be careful, like if you're a YouTube professional, like you know, like you certainly wouldn't want to do something like have like an SW Discord chat where you try to like send sexy nudes of yourself to your for 18 only fans, so that one day a controversy could happen that you potentially sent nude pics to minors.
What the hell are you referencing?
Pro Jared.
No, we're not gonna talk. We're not gonna bring it up here.
Well, I'm just saying. Or like or be like one of those people that like makes your fandom into like assholes about certain video game characters. Eagle Raptor.
Okay, yeah, you make a big website, and you abuse your workers, and hide a pedophile, and then say that everybody should just get over it.
Colton, I'm sorry you felt that way. We're getting off topic.
We shouldn't joke, but
we shouldn't joke. But sometimes when bad stuff happens, all you can do is like try to laugh about it. And probably someday I will. I think we could talk about like YouTubing and how to not avoid controversies like that.
Average Joe Squad and Zangusu's Guide to YouTube.
And for the record, these are not our opinions or anything. We're just making jokes about stuff that's topical.
Declassified YouTube survival guides.
but
I think we get sued over that one.
Yeah, but like you get my point though, right? Like the Hobgoblin had so much potential to be such a great character, and they kept screwing him up. Even after Roger Stern came along and fixed him, Dan Slott came along and was like, "Hey, you like this character? Well, guess what? I'm gonna have Phil Urich, the former heroic Green Goblin, murder him." Just later they retcon that. And then he's gonna be the new Hobgoblin who makes stupid Halloween jokes and has this stupid ass looking costume with wings and a fire sword. Isn't a fire sword cool, kids? And in his first episode, he gets beaten by someone playing Lady Gaga really loud.
One of these days, I'm just gonna do a compilation of us dissing Dan Slott, and I'll upload it and tag him in it just for shits and giggles, because fuck Dan Slott.
And this has been a problem with the
y'all heard me. Fuck you, Dan. You suck.
And to be honest, this has been a problem for the goblins for like ever. Like they keep trying to make new goblins, and it never works. From Gwen and Norman's kids being the Gray Goblin and the Lady Goblin.
The only good other goblin is Normie.
And Menace. You remember
Normie.
Menace, right? That Brand New Day villain that like.
What about Red Goblin?
It's still Norman.
Yeah, but it's Carnage.
But anyway, I think that I've proved, like, I love the Hobgoblin, and it's such a shame that like this is his legacy.
They did him like this.
Yeah. Your final thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you in a lot of aspects. Even as a kid, like reading the Ultimate Guide to Spider-Man. By Tom
which
DeFalco.
is hilarious because Tom DeFalco was so salty about this in that.
Yeah, it's even as a kid, I knew it was such a huge convoluted mess of a storyline that I was just like, I don't like, because as a kid I never saw Hobgoblin in anything except TAS.
Yeah, and he's great in that.
And it's like, because I was always like, he sucks in comparison to the Green Goblin. That was like, as a kid, that was my entire opinion on it.
To be fair, though, he's still better than the TAS Green Goblin because he doesn't have a stupid sounding
Oh my
voice.
God. Don't bring...
I'm the Green Goblin.
Damn it, stop bringing a Skeletor into this.
Yeah, He-Man. Come to fight the rightful ruler of Eternia.
Give me a He-Man and Spider-Man TAS crossover.
I'm Adam, Prince of Eternia. This is my friend Captain Cringerpants. Fabulous secrets were revealed to me when I held my mighty sword aloft and sang, "What's going on?"
All right, on that note,
let's end this.
let's wrap this up. So, again, thank you guys for tuning in to the first episode of season 2 of Remember the Hyphen, the show where we ask you, as always, to remember the hyphen.
I almost dropped my wrap chips.
This-
Take care. This is the stupidest ending we've ever done. Oh my god. Let's just end it.